got called from I got a call and it completely destroyed, like, it made the stream buffering, and I didn't want you to, like, be able to listen to what I was talking about, you little sneaky people. But oops, I will have to take a break. I mean, I did paint, like, ish the thingy, but I can hold on painting the railings. I usually, when I've had a phone call, I go out and take a cigarette because I am an legally I'm an adult, and I mean, I wrote hold on in chat, but only, I mean, there's one person now, but however much of an audience I had, it's eradicated now. So we're just standing here. I mean, I am sitting. I don't know what you are doing currently. But I was sort of wondering as well, how smart is it if I get a phone call when I'm streaming, and I have now confirmed that it is horrible and it doesn't really work. So I mean, I could let it buffer and not be able to function, but if I do anything else on my phone without, like, screen recording my phone, it sort of gets fucked. And if I use any cameras, it will, like, switch to that and disable the Streamlabs camera, which is dumb. And I am looking at my dog, and she's pretty and adorable. But my worst nightmare is having to upload 2 parts of essentially the same thing. So when I get rich and at least have the economy to buy a tablet, I will invest in a tablet only for the purpose of maybe sketching and planning a bit more of painting, because I don't really like to use sketchbooks, if that makes sense. Like, I want the paint, like, things in a sketchbook to be very professional, really pretty. I want it to look like a whole logistically painting. I can't make a lot of small things on a whole page. It doesn't work. So having just a lot of untitled sketching is more ideal, at least for me personally. And yeah, and then I can be on Snapchat and I can make TikToks while currently live on the interwebs as well. So amazing. I just put a number 2 on it to sort of emphasize to the people who were watching that it is still going on. Probably I'll have to. Is it fucking snowing? It's snowing. Right? Of course. Why wouldn't it? Yeah, this was unexpected. They are sort of big. Maybe they'll become bigger, but I didn't expect lumpy rain to occur, but it's definitely better than rain itself, because I can sort of shake them off without getting completely fucking soaked. It is actually really, really pretty to see a lot of snow but the sun really shining as well. Uh, Unexpected, but a really nice turn. I have to make a painting with sun and snow. Definitely, because now I know it does actually occur. And you can sort of slightly see it. That's nice. It's pretty. I'm getting it in my hair. And as fast as it occurred, it slowly disappeared again. I mean, there's a big chunk of cloud right above me, so it makes sense. And it's kind of dark, so it makes sense. It's cold in the air, at least on all the way up there. Yeah. Great. Amazing. I did write hold on in chat, but I think the people had left already because, you know, I got a call. Amazing. And now I'll point you to my cat so I can take a shit. Or at least pee, because he wants to go out. You can't look at him because he is walking outside. Goodbye, cat, whom I love. So you'll just have to look at the painting, I guess. Now. It's sort of a dumb tripod. I like moving it or like touching it slightly will eradicate everything I worked for. But we had a good thing going on, and then I got a call. But I'ma have to pee. I can. Right pee. Or hold on. That is there we go. Congratulations. You can't see it, but it's there. amazing. Amazing. Fantastic. Absolutely whackers, bonkers, as perhaps the kids say today. Now, does this look pretty? No, you're very far away. So I'll have to zoom in just a tiny bit amount. And then I'll... Oops. Like so. Perhaps. I mean, at least it's better. Anyway, what I was doing, I can tell the void that I'm up and going again. It was just an unexpected turn. Still alive and, well, just got a call. Lol. It fuck it up, sort of off. Amazing. It's lovely. Now, I was making the terrace thingy, so I will take I will have to mix more of this color because it dried itself out, of course, and I'll put in some of that light to lighten it up, but still having it dark. And I'll have to precisely drag it all the way out and to like the thickness I want it. And I think it is a bit skinny, so I want to fill out the downside as well, making it look more sturdy. Not that it isn't sturdy, I wouldn't precisely know. Most of the things I paint, I am realistically winging it in all the ways possible, and yeah, it makes sense. And I want it to be the same amount of space from where the tape starts, so it was just a tiny bit skinny right there. But here we go, making it thicker. And yeah. Giving it textures from all the way down there. Amazing. I have outdone myself. Now I want it to be lighter on the railings, so I'll mix more of the white than black. Luckily I still have a bunch. I'll probably just take all of that and then have some water. Take all of this, making it sort of dark, but not that dark, you know? because that plate is concrete. Now, I'd have to know how railings work, which is hard, honestly. I think I have. Let me just show you how bad I am at precisely that, if I can find the right painting. There it is. This, you can't quite see it, but the railing isn't the best railing that I've ever done. It is sort of crooked, it is sort of uneven, it is sort of out there, it doesn't quite know which directions it's going to go, and it's not equal, but I do like that scene. So this will be the second terrace related balcony-ish scenery I do, which is fun. Making more of the same stuff is a good practice, but you have to do it in different ways to maximize your practice, right? So I'll just put this line as slim as I am possibly able to do, and I'll not connect it, or I mean I should connect it to the balcony, or like the thingy, right? But I should do it ever so slightly, because this will technically be coming onto the terrace behind this slab, right? Maybe ish, perhaps, sort of. Now, bad man, can I run with scissors? The chat on screen is humongous. I don't know how to change that. I mean, I do know how to change that, but I'll have to do it on a later occasion, because I don't know how it will destroy the stream, and I don't want to destroy the stream once again. But it's sort of funny that it is really big. Now, I am thinking maybe to do this line as well first before doing that one down, but I feel like if I make this one, it's easier connecting them on a better slope sort of scale. Show us the other paintings. But I've already done that. I mean, you can sort of see a slideshow of them. I just showed this, which has railings on it, and the reason why I'm painting this is because I painted this last time, and you know, there's no there's no space for living. I estimated that a human being in this scenery would be as tall as the windows, which is bonkers. But I do have some nice pictures. This is the second last I did. It's a big sky with some tree lines as well, and I have this one, which is also really pretty. It shines gold if the light hits it right. Okay, Bob Ross, thank you. And also this, which is a lovely color as well. And I have these flowers, and I have this living room space with windows as well. I have this, which somehow is most young people my age's favorite Minecraft house. Sort of, perhaps. I don't want it to feel like a Minecraft house. And this is very dark, but it is like a man going towards a lighthouse and such. And it has a nice harmony. And maybe this one is a woman looking at the sky throughout her half-sloped roof. And this one is also kind of pretty. The lights doesn't make that much sense, and I was a bit lumpy with the paint, at least in the foreground, but you can't quite see that. And then I have other stuff which is a bit more experimental. It's not my peak in those senses, and I have to ish make them look pretty in the pile. But I'm making railings. And I mean, if this goes all the way to here, I need to do it all the way to about there as well, with the same spacing, and that is a bit too tight actually, and then I'll have to drag it down in the most straight fashion possible, which was kind of hard, but I'll fill in the gaps a bit better since I now know where it needs to go. A lot of them in here. How often do you paint? I try to at least stream most days, and my goal was to at least paint one painting each week from like Christmas Eve, and I am taking my time. I'm taking my sweet time on them now because I want them to look a bit more realistic. I know that I have like the time to make it looking really pretty. So I try to do it to my best ability, but I also need to like contain myself if something doesn't quite look the way I want it to. I also need to like say okay, chill, it's not the end of the world, and sort of making it look to my best abilities. Correct. Now, I don't know if it is that this isn't like as straight as the other one, or if it isn't as filled in with colors, and that is why it is looking a bit odd, or maybe it's like just actually different lengths, and yeah, that's the problem. I've done something wrong, or like at least crooked, but I mean it happens when I have to look crooked at it. Morning, hello. Do you ever start with an idea and then go on painting something else? Kind of. If I have an idea of what I want to do, at least now I wanted to at least practice making realistic looking floors and windows to proportions, and it is what I am going on about, because I usually with the idea I make a sort of sketch. That's all the red lines is the sketch part of the painting. So to make something else would be to break these patterns that I have carved into the paint, and when you paint something else over like a sketch sort of, you can look through it, because every single thing you do and every single layer of painting will to some degree be able to view when you're done with the entire painting. So I mean, it does occur that I have tried to paint something and miserably failed. At least, fuck. At least with one here is, if I can find it, if it's even up here, maybe it is downstairs, but sort of, at least, yeah, it's here. At least with this one, I tried to make northern lights, and obviously it didn't work, so I made a lot of different colors with small flower petals and such, and I didn't know what to paint at all, so it became this figure, and I didn't want it to look like a keyhole, so I had to add this part, but you still see like the pencil strokes of me like doing this all the way around, and it's sort of unpleasing, so I have taught myself to be better at knowing and planning out first, because it's easier when I have these lines to work with in all those senses. I need to make this top rail part. I also need it to connect to each other, and I am slightly confused as to how to make the dimensions of the things, I mean the three-dimensional space, to make that make sense, right? That makes sense. Because you telepathically know what I'm thinking about. Of course. Of course. It is very lumpy. It doesn't look nice. Hello there. Are you having a blast? Are you a painter cuisine person? Right now I'm painting railings. It is sort of working out, and it is sort of not working out, but I think I would have to make the railings at the same length as here, only further down from the window. So this one goes a bit above the window, and then this one needs to go a bit below the window, but it needs to have the same amount of spacing as the top one to the sides, which is a sort of challenge when when you're planning it and not quite knowing exactly where they are to fit perfectly. So at least this one's a bit under the window, and then I have to paint this to the spacing that is required here-ish. And then I'll check with this length if they are the same, and they are almost the same, which is amazing. And then I'll just have to check with this if that is the same. It needs to be a bit taller, actually. There we go. And then I'll have to draw a line over, which is the most dreadful part. Where are you from? I am at work bored. I am from Norway. And that is where I'm currently at as well. I am painting rails. I am I should have chosen a different pencil for this because it is very big and flowy. It doesn't really want to make as tiny lines as I would like. Um, but I mean, I think maybe to have a bit thickness to them would emphasize the strength of them. So I don't want them to be too thin either. So it's sort of a hard middle ground to uh, go at. And like get them to match and fit at the same space seems to be a problem that I'm having today. And I think that is because my view is from the side, so it looks straight from here, but then I go here and it's like, oh, it's crooked. This is more tinier than this. It sort of has a, maybe I can use that to my advantage for somehow to like have not a directly on but a bit side view from it, if that makes sense. At least for me it makes sense. At least I mean, the artist is the only one needing to make sense of their art. The viewer of the art just needs to interpret what is going on in relation to themselves, you know. And I mean, as long as this is the only setup that works, at least for what I am doing and such, it has to be. And I realize that this door is not as thick as this one, but I think that door is a bit too thick. I think it needs to be that, because that it seems too wide, honestly, at least compared to the windows and everything. So I will have to remember that, but I will make this railing go to this point slowly upwards to there, and then I'll have to make it the same length as that and work it work it until here, and I'll probably have to make the windows, and I have to change them ever so slightly in one direction, not the band but dimensional lines. And I'll continue this line all the way down to know what is going outwards, you know, so I know a bit more dimensional wise where it is going, right? And then I'll have to have ish the same thing, but it goes down here, and I'll have to remember how far apart they are from each other, so they are, so I can visually show that they are in fact the same size, because that's sort of important. Perfectly, and I don't want to paint in all the lines that would be the railing quite yet, because I want to have as much space to perfectly paint the background, and then when I'm painting the stuff that goes onto the terraces, I would want to not like continue it from another line. I want it to have a continuous shape, so it is easier to translate in visually. And then I'll leave that until quite ish here, which makes sense because I need to thin out the door. I would have to make it tinier. And I'll continue all the way down there perfectly. Fuck. Oops. I made an oopsie, but that's okay. It happens. And now I have the three-dimensional space that I want, and it is actually making sense, which I am pleased about. I didn't really believe I was going to pull that off. I mean, I had hopes, but you know, it's always an uncertainty. But look, boys, we made it. Now I need to ponder about what to do next. And I think the problem with that part here is that the spacing right here is correct, relevant to this ish from my perspective, but and this do align with the railings, but I would have to slimmen the door ever so slightly, and I also have to push it a bit further down, and probably I'd have to make this window here a bit further to the side, and I'd probably have to put this window ever so slightly to the side as well. And I'm thinking that I can extend the window so it is a bit wider and not just a tiny square. I think that would be a good idea. I just have to redo the paint, essentially. So the smart thing to do is to have this bright color, which I essentially used up, but maybe we can put some life into it and essentially just cut off the part, at least where I would have to make it stop. Like the frame of this window can't go further onto this side, right? But the window can extend until here ish, and using this as a sort of marker, and then I'll continue it down here as well to emphasize where the spacing would the new spacing would be. Right, perfect. Trying to get paint that is essentially dried is a sort of hard task, but I would have to do the same thing here, but not that much, essentially. And then I would have to, from this down portion, extend it to like about there, ish. That makes sort of sense. And I'm just painting over the rail work because it's okay, it happens. And then I'll paint on top of this as well and emphasize that line, which is sort of crooked, and this line as well. And I'm making sure that it is completely transparent, that it goes from the start of the railing, right? Perfect, or at least a bit indent in it, but I'd have to make this door ever so thinner, ever so slightly thinner, so I will just do this essentially, making that ever so slightly skinnier, and then I'll emphasize where the new window and the new spacing in between them will be, because now if the windows are starting at the railings, I'd also have to emphasize this a bit, or at least they start right inside or outside of the railings to have a cohesiveness. I'd emphasize on that as well, and then as well as this right here, because then it will move itself under here on this point, and then it will sort of meet in this weird corner, right? That makes sense. And then I'll just go over the top, making it as idealistic as possible, and then I'll move down here as well. And now they look evenly skinny, because doors are usually not very wide. They are taller rather than wider, which makes perfect sense. And I'll do this side as well, because I didn't paint the frame of this very well. If I do have any more paint left of this, I'll have to aggressively mix it out just to get this ever so slightly correctly, and then it'll be a bit space after the railing, I mean into the railing, that is. Amazing. I have completely outdone myself today. At least now it is cohesive and it makes sense in all possible ways necessary. Amazing. You can have a closer look, because now this looks quite opposite as to that, and I really I do, honest to God, believe it makes sense. But since we're seeing less of this and a lot of this, these lines don't necessarily translate as well, because if this is from the window frame this tall, and from the windowsill it should be a bit upwards and not as far down. But if this is the ground from here and up to the line, and this is the ground up to the line. It is almost. So I would have to, perhaps, I would have to create these shadows that I was talking about earlier. And I will probably make them out of a gray and this red that I have a bunch of. That is almost dried out. This was my sketching color. And I'll just take all of that and put it to the middle, and I'll mix it with water to make it a bit more flowy and less lumpy. No hate to Lumpy Space Princess, but we don't like lumpy paint. And maybe I can. I would have to mix it with the brightest color I own. So I'll just chop it all in there and mix it out inside here. Maybe that was a lot, perhaps, but if the panels are a slight blue color, I would have to have some sort of differentiating with the middle point being slightly red, because then it makes sense color theory wise that the dark points are purple. So light means blue and darkness means more red, and unclear whether or not there's light or darkness, it is purple. And that makes sense. Now I'd have to use more white. I mean, it's this sort of same tone, but it's like very red, and it will be very prevalent. Or like it will show very well that it is in fact very more pink than the blue, because so far all the blue colors, it just looks white because of all the other colors in it, which makes sort of sense in a weird kind of way. Now I will have just a tiny bit of paint. Anyway, now this line had to be moved a bit more up. And I will paint it a bit more up than what it was, and I'll have to continue this all the way out here until the end. Now have it a bit on the door just so I don't have to, so I don't accidentally make a space in between the colors. And I'll do the same thing up here. That one's kind of thick, but at least I know essentially where the line goes. And then I'll paint a downward stripe right here. Amazing. And then I'll paint this one all the way up to the window. Amazing. Now, maybe this spacing right here can also be this pinkish color. So I just don't have to find another color, because it would be sort of odd to have one color on the thing that it sort of sticks out like a sore thumb. And I'll have to paint that in here as well. It isn't quite as thin and elegant as the one down on the downside floor, but I am trying my best. And yeah, it needs to end where the railings start, meaning we can't quite see the end of it, because that's where the railing is, and the railing will sort of cover it, which makes sense. Amazing. Perfect. Now I'd have to do this, but I want to remember where these lines go, because it goes right in between the door here and down, and then it goes in between the window right here, or like sort of with the same spacing from outside. I mean, it is not in the in between, in the middle, quite frankly, of the other side, but this spacing is almost the same from the canvas itself, that is. And then I'd have to transfer this line all the way equal up to here, which they are sort of similar. It's almost, you know. Yeah, it's a bit thick, but I'll come closer and sneak up on it. And this needs to be about, yeah, about here. And so these lines are the same, and these lines down here are opposite ish. I would have to make this one going the same direction as the one on top, so like it'll be sort of similar. I am perplexed and confused, but I'll have one like right here on this top edge. Of course, maybe I can fill it all the way out and decide on a later occasion, or maybe just tone it down to the middle, but thinky noises. From the railing and down, it is sort of this length, so it'll be on a bit further down here, which doesn't make sense because I had to put this a bit up to match that. Or maybe I'm just directionally blind. Doesn't quite make sense, but I can make it a bit, thick and pretend, because I feel like that would be way too far down. Anyway, my thinking noises didn't make me actually know, but nonetheless, relative to the window, it is more correct. So a bit directionally blind. But anyway, we'll have that line going here. And if it's slightly off, it'll be slightly off. Amazing. I have outdone myself perspective wise. Now I'll have to make that line in the middle, right about. I should probably make it about here, actually. So if it's the space that is on the other side relative to the door, it makes sense because they're supposed to be opposite. And according to the railing, this will quite easily be about right where I had planned it would be, which makes me a genius. And it's also what goes up there as well. So they are cohesive and the same, and I am proud of myself. And then I'll have to paint the panels in between that again in a slightly bluish color to make sense of it, but it'll have to dry a bit so I can show you what I've done. I made these lines and they do correlate to the responding side ish, and it makes the flow a bit more equal, if that makes sense. Yeah, it makes sense. I perspective wise, if I like put it directly as much as possible in between, you can see that it is indeed crooked, and like this railing goes a lot more up than this, and I can't quite see, but it feels like this sort of extends the tip a bit. Don't know how to fix that. Don't quite care because it's more of a me sitting and having this perspective, because here they do look equal. I mean, this top one is a bit crooked, but this down here, it looks fine. It looks fine. It's just your perspective that is wrong. I mean, oops. Now, I would 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I would want to sort of try. I would definitely have to do the panels again, and then I would have to need some blue, and I have a clear blue slot here. That's way too much blue. I mean, perhaps this one, and I'll just scoop out a lot of that blue and I'll put it into this corner right here, because I think it is too much blue, because I want it to be very bright blue, looking a bit more like white rather than it looking blue. Now I don't want it to look purple. Let me try not to scoop the paint that much on that side. I'd rather scoop it a bit more on this side. And now I just have to mix it, which is a boring task. And I have to get all of the paint in it. Now, it does have the same tone as the pink, but I want it to look pink and blue, but it does sort of make sense. But then it is a lot of pink and blue, and then all of a sudden it will be a lot of green here. So I think I do need it to be more white. So I'll just scoop out a lot of that blue and then fill it in with more white. And I'll have to make sure that it does mix with each other, and preferably as fast as it possibly wants to. And at least now it's a bit more white. Hopefully it will look quite white when I, you know, paint everything else that is going to be on this painting. And I'll mix the fibers of this brush a bit better, because that's usually what makes ugly, suddenly the color is a bit more one thing rather than what I want it to be, which is an odd thing to do to such a simple being as myself. I will start down here very nicely, and I'll have to do this right here, nice and easy. There's no room for mistakes that I just made, so I'll just pretend that the railing doesn't exist anymore. Luckily for me, they sort of shine through still, but I'm more but I am more concerned that it covers all of this rather than the railing, because I am capable of doing that all over again, because I sort of want to do it all over again, and I just fucked up. Oops. I mean, I never do mistakes. I forgot to be aware of the tiny little line there, which makes me having to paint over that line in pink once more, as professionally as possible. Luckily, I have a fuck ton of it. Amazing. Now it is visible. I do like the lightness of it. I don't believe, when I have done the windows better, I do believe it would look prettier, but I do need to have some sort of greenery on this one as well, to have greenery all around as well. But currently I'm just having to make these panels nice and easy, and all the way down to where they belong. Just make it different lengths, at least. Directionally, they don't have to go the same line. I don't think that's the most important thing, at least in this piece, because it's man-made. It won't have a sort of rhythm to it. but I do need to cover up the like small spots that I haven't painted for reasons that are beyond me. Amazing. And I'll just paint all over the railings as I did on the other side, but I'll make sure not to touch the pink line again because that was sort of done of me. Yeah, won't do that again. You know, fill in all the colors if they want to be filled in the fucking corner. I mean, the nice and smooth harmony. I mean, something. Amazing. Perfect. I do believe you are a bit far away in like the viewing of the thingy. That is better. I mean, yeah, it is a bit more clear what I am currently doing. It wasn't that visible before I made it visible for you to appreciate and visually look at this current day, time, and moment in the afternoon on this snowy day, surprisingly. Wasn't quite expecting that, but it did happen, which is fun. Amazing. Now, I'd have to do all of this as well, but possibly I can start with the outer lines just because it seems to be easier, at least directionally, and I'll have to sneak up on this window line, sort of emphasizing it all the way down to the railing because that's when the window starts. And then this part right here, nicely and equal amounts of paint throughout, of course, because you wouldn't expect anything else. Now, I was having to do this as well, and I did actually just sort of cover it, but I do want to keep as much as it as I possibly can, just so I know a bit better where it is. But it is kind of hard. I do have to admit, I'm not a professional, unfortunately. And then, like so, ish. Kind of. Now, that is as good as I possibly can. I should paint a bit more paint here so it isn't as shallow and it is depth in the color. this space that also extends just two little space on top of it as well. Amazing. It is sort of boring to paint all over the things you've done before, but I do know that it makes for a better painting, at least in the way of correcting like the lines you did that might not be quite perfect and such things. But it is tedious and boring at best, and fulfilling as well, but not as much. At least I am continuing and getting closer to the painting's finishing. And I would have to do from here and all the way to this big ass space, and I think I'll just paint over the rail work right here. I think that's okay. And I have to take a lot of it and fill in all of this space. I think that was a bit too much because I was extending the windows and I sort of forgot how far I was extending it. I think it will be to about here. So I'll remember. I'll try to remember that. But that means my markings were a bit too light, at least in how well I was able to remember and see them. So we still have a bit to do on this, at least down part. I think it is currently going quite well. I am a bit surprised. Yeah, amazing. Now I should paint over this once more because the paint here is really shallow, at least in like towards the door, and a bit under it as well. It's not as shallow here, which I'm grateful for. But let's make sure we remember this window and not paint on top of it, at least as to how much I guessed that I would yeah, that makes sense. Did you know that this is sort of boring to do? I don't have that many words left to speak in those senses possible, but it is sort of the most boringest thing you could do. I mean, there's no intention that I haven't said already by what I am currently doing, so there's not much to emphasize on. Amazing. Now I can move on to this part right here, and I'll be sure to fill it all the way down. That's probably a bit much. Amazing. I have to make this line a bit prevalent, at least a bit better. And this small piece right here. It's looking gorgeous. It's cute. I like it. I don't know how blue the blue will look when I am, further on in the piece. Hopefully, it will look white. That is my ideal plan. So when I'm making like white things as well, like in the windows or outside on the balconies, I will use blue in it to make sure that that looks white. Right? That makes sense. To have a cohesiveness and a nice flattering tone. And all the way down here, and I'd have to paint this a bit thicker so it is visible. And I'll sneak up on this pink line, and I'll make it a bit tinier in the middle of it rather than on top or under it, like so. That's pretty. Then I would have to do this corner as well. I heard my cat. There my cat is. What a lovely creature. He goes in and out from the window, of course, because I have taught him that that is possible. Because if he comes on that side, he'll stand on a bench and like peep through, and then if he comes from that side, the door, like, it has this much space-ish from the floor, and that means he can lean on, scratch on the window, which he usually does to make noise. Because he has, for some reason, taught himself that if he scratches or like just moves his paw, he doesn't really use his claws, but his like paw part, that means he wants to transform himself to the other side of the wall. Yeah, which makes sense. He was a bit uncertain on whether or not he was to jump from the window, but luckily he mastered up the courage to actually jump and like fall down. Like, he's a cat, he won't do that unless it's necessary. Such a fucking cat. Now, and I'll have to do all the way to in between these railings. I am trying not to paint over the railings because I feel like these were a bit pretty and I don't want to lose all of that, but I will have to like make sure that the colors are even and that they are prevalent in the ways that that they are necessary in, you know, getting rid of like the colors that I used to sketch and getting rid of like the parts you wouldn't want to see. I mean the parts that is not necessary for the painting. Yes, correct. Amazing. I'm always right. At least when I'm talking to myself. When I talk to other people, it can actually vary. But as long as it's only me speaking out words, I can never be wrong. Or maybe I can be confused and like having to correct myself, but usually no. Never. Ever. And the things I could be wrong, technically speaking, is the times when I'm like trying to figure out how to do something. Now I want to cover up this with the panel color because it hasn't, it's like it hasn't been painted over, so I would have to paint it over at some point, and then I can, so it still has equally amount of paint like the rest. And then this fucking corner from this side, maybe if I, oops, do this. filling it all the way where it is necessary to be filled with color. Amazing. I have outdone myself yet again. Not quite yet. I have some spaces left to fill. Yeah, about that much space. I sort of fucked up. Oops, right here. But luckily, I still have a lot of pink, so I can hide the mistake quite quick and quite nice. Amazing. Now, I still have some thing left to fuck, and I'd have to paint this. I think I'm a bit more careless about whether or not I'm touching the railing. I'm an idiot. I have yet again painted over the pink line. Such a dum-dum. Luckily, I can fix my mistakes. I think I'm sort of getting out of the hyper focus that I started with while painting, and it is starting to become a lot more details than I am currently, as much as possibly possible at all, what I am capable of. So I will have to get away from the easel and take 5 minutes to realize my state as a human being, and get a grip on myself and on my focus. But this looks amazing. I am proud of myself. I just need to look over and see if there is some sort of shawly-ish parts, and I'll have to give that a bit more layer of color. I think at least here we are in the dire need of a bit more coverage, and also on this side, on these slight corners. And down here as well. Oops, that's okay. Now we'll do the really either way again, and then again, and then again. Amazing. Can I remove that thick stripe? No, I cannot. Can I hide it a bit better? Possibly, perhaps. Not really. Not quite as much as I hoped. And also here. And then a bit more down here. And then all these spaces that I have completely eradicated, which is fine. It's no biggie. It happens. It does actually happen quite a lot. And I'm grateful now. Amazing. Now when I look at it, it does look pretty, at least from like the distance. Because I use your perspective to get like, to not be this close to it constantly. So when I am like viewing it from a distance, I can see like how well the harmony and like how well I have constructed it as well. I can see a bit better what I have done wrong, I mean, and whether or not it is straight or like perspective wise correctly. I'll have to squeeze out all this paint. And it seems to have done the trick. Ish. Ever so slightly. Amazing. You can look at it a bit closer now. I do feel like the stripes are a bit thick, and I do feel like the door is floating a bit, and this line needs to be this thick all the way through. It is bent down here, it's bent down there. It's not ideal, as you could say, and since we don't see that part because it's under here, we don't need to focus on that part down there. But yeah, I haven't perfectly made that window as equal as to that, but I did start them at the part of the railing, so it does make sense, and it is amazing. I absolutely love it. It is like a sketch, and I have to extend this part as well. So because this is very tiny compared to this, and I am then looking at where directly the tape starts from the painting. So this right here between my nail is not as much as here, because we can see the line of the tape, and it is a thicker consistency. But I'm gonna end the stream, so goodbye.